Hi, everyone. This is Charlie. I'm the co-founder and the principal of XCamp. Today, we have the 52nd Education Forum. Today's topic is my CS journey. We are very happy to have 3 students from Berkeley today to talk about their experience. First, I will give you a quick introduction of XCamp. Then we will have panelist introduction and discussion. Then we have some time for the QA. Previously, we already have the CS journey from Columbia, Brown, Stanford, designer theory. Also, we have coming events from USACO finalists in the next week. I'd like to play a 2-minute video about XCamp.
Computer science and artificial intelligence are tools that will change the future. XCamp Academy is a community dedicated to inspiring and cultivating the next generation of computer science and artificial intelligence talent. XCamp Academy was founded in August 2017 in Silicon Valley by 2 Google software engineers. The name XCamp was inspired by the variable X, which represents unlimited opportunities. XCamp's curriculum system and training methodology is inherited from Mr. Xianyou Xu, a Chinese diamond-level international gold medal coach. Our staff here in the US is mostly composed of senior software engineers from tech companies in Silicon Valley. In addition, we have strong support from international and domestic competition winners in our coach team. From beginner-level Python to classic C++ courses and competition honors courses, XCamp's curriculum is designed for students of all different levels. By participating in team-based competitions and facilitating frequent group study sessions, XCamp also fosters an environment of collaboration to build each student's confidence in their ability to code. As of now, more than 150 XCamp students have been qualified for USACO Silver Division and above, including 25 in the Platinum Division and 5 were selected in the US Camp, out of which 4 were fresh from the 2022 season. In 2022, in Stanford's renowned high school programming competition PROCO, XCamp students won first and second place in the Advanced Division. In other well-known Bay Area programming competitions, such as the Harker Programming Invitational and Teams Code, XCamp students have won both novice and advanced groups top places. Here at XCamp, we believe that children have unlimited potential and can change the world through coding.
Thank you. This year's USACO US Camp finalist is not public yet. 7 of our students have received the invitation to attend the US Camp in the coming week. Okay, this is about XCamp. Next, I like to have the introduction from the panelists. First, Chris, go ahead.
So how are you all doing? I'm Chris. I'm a junior at UC Berkeley studying CS, and I actually just graduated, I guess technically a week ago, which is pretty cool. But let's see, some work experience. I've worked at Facebook last summer, and over the last year, I've been doing distributed systems research, so that's pretty cool. And also, I'm one of the organizers of Calico, a programming competition for high schoolers.
Okay, yes, thank you, Chris. I got to know Chris when XCamp support Calico. I think some of you might know Calico is good and big online competitive for high school and middle school students. Chris spent a lot of time in the past years, to organize this. Thank you, Chris. Next, we have Albert.
Yeah, hi, I'm Albert. I am a freshman at UC Berkeley, and work experience was I was core staff for CS70, which is discrete math, last semester. I also did do a lot of work with Calico. I'm going to UC Berkeley, probably going to graduate in 2025, but we'll see. And in high school, I went to Saratoga, for anyone from there. and I did get USACO Plat when I was a junior.
Yes, thank you, Albert. Also, as Albert, took the XCamp classes before. Now also he's a teacher in XCamp. Albert gave us a lot of support. Thank you, Albert. Next, Xavier.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Xavier. I'm a sophomore at UC Berkeley, also studying CS, probably graduating in 2025. And as for work experience, last year I did an RE research position at Syracuse University. And it's not listed here, but I also am on course staff for CS 170, a different CS class at Berkeley that's it's called Efficient Algorithms with Intractable Problems, and it's probably the closest class here that's or the class here that's closest to competitive programming. I really like the class. I'm currently a reader for it, hoping to be a TA in the future. And yeah, so that's my work experience. I went to high school at Jamesville-Dewitt High School. That's in upstate New York, near Syracuse. And as for leadership, I'm currently the president and founder of competitive coding at Berkeley, the competitive programming club here. And I've also been involved with Calico this year as well.
Yeah, thank you, Xavier. We know, for the college, there's a competitive team too. Xavier lead that team, also support Calico. Also, thank you for coming to share experience here. Okay, great. I have 5 general questions to ask each of you. Maybe just in the order from Chris to Albert and Xavier to answer and share. Yeah, please share kind of as much as details you like, especially thinking how the audiences, we have the audiences mostly high school and middle school students and their parents. So from your experience, I think we can learn, especially, when we grow, sometimes we don't know, where there might be not a right way for every student, but there's some experience, I think when you're sharing, we can don't make some mistakes, or especially can grab some value from experience. Okay, the first question is about, why are you special for Berkeley, or kind of why Berkeley select you? Also, you may answer why you choose Berkeley, and then kind of highlights from high school experience or some special part of yourself. Let's start from Chris.
Yeah, so let's see. I think the main thing that's kind of been behind a lot of the things I talked about in my college app, I think, was because when I was, at least I went to California high school, and around the time that I went there wasn't a huge coding scene there. So I guess a lot of this has the context with if you're going to a high school and there's not already a very active programming scene, I found myself having to start a lot of things. So I would go to these high school hackathons with my friends, and then we organized a high school hackathon for 2 years, and that was one of the first things I did. And then later in 11th grade, I found out about competitive programming, which is really late, but that's cool. I found out about it through my AP CSA teacher, and then I was super into it. And I think for that contest and the next one, I wrote these programming competitions to use for tryouts and stuff. And so that was another experience of kind of starting something from the ground up. And then I guess on the side, I started a programming club that just kind of went over a lot of HTML, CSS stuff. It's very very basic. I don't even know if you could call it front end, but it was very basic web development stuff. And I wrote these lectures on HTML, CSS, and then later Java to get people prepped for AP CSA. And then also did volunteer tutoring. So I think just the common thread between all those is just a lot of starting things. And so I guess that could be something that worked in my favor, but yeah.
I see. This kind of coding related experiences kind of make you pretty special. Anything else, any other part besides coding?
Let's see, activity wise, well, I guess, okay, so you have your pretty standard extracurricular activities. I did swim, but I wasn't that good at it. I think that was just a thing that was there. Some other things, I guess attending hackathons or other competitions, there's that Congressional App Challenge, and then there's also I'm trying to think about them off the top of my head, but I guess just those kind of one-off events And then also, I'd say I already mentioned volunteer tutoring. I guess that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Albert, how about you?
I think that what made me what got me into Berkeley was not necessarily related to coding. Like, yes, I did have like a lot of like competitive coding experience, and that was on my application. But I think that the kicker was actually a leadership leadership skills. So I was part of a nonprofit in high school, and there I did a lot of like, and it was an econ nonprofit, not a CS nonprofit, so completely unrelated. But there I was able to like lead people, like just manage a large group of people and deliver some type of results. We were making curriculum, so it was just like I directed a group of like around like 10 people to make like AP econ curriculum, and then we just sent that out to like econ clubs across the globe. So I think that having an impact like that is definitely something that would help a lot to get into Berkeley. And college applications, like colleges don't really care a lot more for like the impact of your skills and how you use them versus just having them. So yeah, there is that to keep in mind.
I see. That's pretty cool. So you reach this econ clubs kind of internationally. How many clubs did you reach?
It was around 80, I think, and
wow.
I think we were able to get at least one per continent.
No, that's great.
Excluding Antarctica, but obviously.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Albert. Xavier.
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of it is similar to kind of what Chris said about starting clubs. So I did a lot of coding and not really competitive programming, but working on a lot of personal projects, just generally doing a lot of coding in middle school leading up to high school. And when I joined my high school, or during my freshman year of high school, that is, there wasn't a coding club the year before, but there was a small one that had just been started. And that club we didn't do too much during my freshman year, but we had regular meetings and did a bunch of stuff. It was a fairly small club, but we did go to this one competition called Code Quest, which is not exactly competitive programming. It's more implementation related than thinking of algorithms necessarily. But we went to that. My team did really well. I had a lot of experience with practicing the previous problem sets, and I practiced a lot for it, and that ended up going really well. And then for my sophomore year, I became an officer, and that's where I really started to kind of lead the club a lot. And I was vice president for my sophomore year, and I started like coding tutorials for members. We didn't have that freshman year. I started teaching people Python during my sophomore year as part of our weekly meetings, and that worked really well. We had a lot of teams that did well at the next year's Code Quest without much prior experience, but they took the tutorials and they learned from that and did well at Code Quest. And then the previous presidents graduated, so for the next 2 years, I was the president of the club and kept expanding the tutorials even during COVID, which hit during the end of my junior year. We kept the club alive and had a lot of online activities, and Code Quest was canceled junior year, but we went senior year and did even better at that. And so I think it was just leading and expanding that club over the years that really helped. And also just in terms of a bunch of other clubs too, I was a part of the math team and won first place in the county during my junior year, during my senior year actually. And then I was a part of Science Olympiad as well. So just a lot of different STEM clubs in addition to this coding club. And I think in addition to the club experience, I continued to work on a lot of different personal projects, mostly coding related during high school, which I think we'll get to in a different question. But I think all of those things with leading the club and then working on these projects helped a lot.
Wow, that's good to know. So you lead the coding club for, I think, attend for the whole high school. Yeah, also be the president for years. That's amazing. That's a lot of leadership work. Yeah, thank you. That's the first question. The second one is about kind of your summers. How did you spend your high school summers? That maybe 3 or 4, if you want like go through the order, and then maybe share some kind of pros and cons, against, and maybe some learnings that will be helpful for us. Yeah. How about Chris? You go first.
Yeah. So I think, let's see, over the summer, I think it's like some combination of like, I remember like I took like some classes over the summer, but I guess like that stuff is just like not like super relevant. It was like geometry or something. But I do remember one summer I went to this program called Cosmos that was like supposed to be this whole like you like go to like a USC for a month or so, and then you like do some like really supposedly like cool project and that kind of stuff. And so like personally, I think, oh man, I went to this program and they were doing this like self-driving car thing where you get to go and like kind of like from the ground up make your own like self-driving RC car. You get to like train it using like reinforcement learning or something. Oh man, but I think that was, I feel like Cosmos is one of those activities that's like, it's cool on paper. I don't know if it was just like the program I was in. Didn't really learn that much. They just had us go through this Google Doc and like literally paste in like code line by line, and then it would be outdated. And then we would have to like spend a long time fixing it. And then we didn't even get to keep the car. So that was like sad. But it was cool on paper. I didn't like really talk about it much in my like application though. I don't think it was that relevant. But then let's see. Other summers, I think I was busy like preparing for running the hackathon. Like it was an in-person event. So like, you know, there's lots of logistics. You gotta like email sponsors, find a venue, get event insurance, like talk to catering, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Oh, and then I guess also like writing programming problems. That's cool.
Great. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Glad to know. Yeah, Cosmo. There's kind of there are also other college internship programs. Some are pretty good. Some you still you learn something. Also, as you say, you can put it on the paper. Right? Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your sharing. Albert, how about you?
Oh yeah, there were a couple of things I did over like the multiple summers. Let me just talk about like each summer. So freshman summer, I spent a lot of time just like my head down doing competitions, and I actually don't recommend this because just putting your entire energy into like just doing competitions kind of burns you out a lot. And I felt like that summer particularly was not very productive for that reason. Because at that point, by like the end of the summer, I was literally just doing contest problems because I had nothing better to do, and because like otherwise like I would just feel useless. It was not, I just didn't really have much motivation by that point. Sophomore summer, I kind of changed things up. I was like, I'm definitely not going to do that again. So I got a TA job at AlphaStar just because I was a student there earlier, and I just talked to them again. Didn't have any teaching experience before, so I did learn some pretty important soft skills from that position. I also did keep doing contest preparation, but it was a lot easier that time because I was like doing other things, and it was less, it burnt me out less. Junior summer, I started writing college essays, led the nonprofit I was talking about earlier, and kept working at the AlphaStar TA job. So, but at this time, like much of my energy was spent on like looking back at the work I've done so far and like summarizing them and seeing how I could like frame it on an application to make myself look the best. It was not really about like doing new things. A couple recommendations I have as to summer activities. I think that a lot of my friends, and I think Chris as well, mentioned doing summer programs. I never did summer programs for various reasons, but I think that but most of the people I know have enjoyed them, and there is tangible college application benefit. But I don't think that you should like try to do sign up for a summer program solely for like a college application, because then you're just stuck like probably like away from home in like doing something you just never really wanted to do in the first place, and that is definitely not a good experience.
Okay, yes, thank you for your suggestions. I heard from one student I know, she took some kind of internship, like in chemistry. Finally, she figured out she didn't like chemistry. So I think find the right program for you is important. Yes. Before we move to Xavier, there's a question. Yeah, let's question for Albert first. So where did you do your internship? Can you say it again?
Alpha Star Academy. I think that
That's a teaching, not an internship, right?
oh wait, no, I didn't. I don't think I said anything about an internship, right?
Yeah, no. I think maybe that's a misunderstanding. That's question to Aaron to Chris. So for your Cosmos application, which grade did you get in and in which cluster?
Okay. I got into it was the summer going into Olympiad. It's the later one, not the one where you get in and everyone's like, wow, this early. Like it's the one after that. But I think I applied to cluster. Okay, I applied to, it was UC San Diego, and then I remember they had like a self-driving car thing, and then they also had like just like general networking, and then I put like self-driving car and then networking. That's kind of like my ranking. But in terms of like what I put on my application, so I think at the time, let's see, at that point I have been doing volunteer tutoring for 2 years, which is just like, just like every like lunch, I just help people with their math homework. But then let's see, I'd also, I think by then I had run at least one of the hackathons. I think I'd run a one hackathon by then. And I had also probably mentioned, I don't think I'm not sure if I started writing programming contests by then, but I might have. But then I guess the things I would have mentioned are probably just something along the lines of like, and then also the coding club that like I've been running since freshman year. So I probably would have mentioned something along the lines of like, like the loose thread connecting all of them together is like some form of leadership and also community action. It's just like, okay, cool, like I'm doing volunteer tutoring and also like helping out like by teaching people like Java and also like HTML, CSS. So it's like a loose like connection of like teaching people stuff. And then also kind of like the hackathon kind of falls into that. And then with like running the like programming club where, I'm writing like lectures and stuff, and I have to organize these like talks every week. And then for the hackathon, like organizing all the logistics, there's like some form of like leadership, I guess, element behind it. But I think that's probably what I put in my application.
Okay, good. Yeah, cool. Thank you, Chris. Yeah. Xavier, how did you spend your high school summers?
Yeah, so I'll do something similar to Albert. I'll just go through each summer. So for summer after freshman year, I did something that I had actually done in middle school. It was a camp called CTY, run through Johns Hopkins, where you basically go to some university for 3 weeks and take like an advanced class on some sort of subject. In middle school, I had taken one on CS, and then one on robotics first, and then on general coding. And then freshman year, I took one on game theory. So these were all really interesting. I had a good experience. I would recommend it. I believe it's only up to 10th grade. But that was summer after freshman year. Summer after sophomore year, I didn't really have anything structured in particular, but I think the biggest thing I worked on was making a website for my high school CS club. So I got some good web dev experience out of that. And I continued working on some other projects at the time, but I believe that was the biggest one. And then summer after junior year, I'll lump that in with also like spring of junior year, because that was right at the start of COVID. I did not have much schoolwork then. My school didn't have too much to do during those few months right after COVID. And that was really where I started to get experience with competitive programming. Like going off of Code Forces rating, I believe I had been like specialist until maybe February 2020, but from February to September 2020, I practiced a lot and I got to master by September. And I think this was I agree with Albert that if you spend all of your time in competitive programming and you don't enjoy it, that's definitely not a good thing. But I think for me during this time, I really was having a lot of fun with it, and I was spending like as much time as I wanted to on it. But and that ended up being a lot of time because I was having fun with it and I was really improving fast. So that was mostly competitive programming practice over my junior year summer, and that ended up working really well. Worked on some more projects too. I think I improved the club website that I made the year earlier, and yeah, that allowed me. This is not the summer, but that allowed me during the next year to start more tutorials on competitive programming for my high school CS club. So that was really cool. It probably helped my Berkeley application as well. And then the summer after that, summer after senior year, before going to Berkeley, I worked on another big project of mine that I think I'll get to in another question, but a major game that I've been working on since like middle of my senior year. So yeah, that's all for my summers.
Okay, great. That's great. Let's move to the third question. It's kind of other school activities. Some of you have you hint some of them. Now maybe talk about more kind of a whole list. Some extracurricular activities. Also some you feel kind of rewarding and fruitful ones. Still, Chris, go first.
Yeah. Let's see. So high school activities extracurricular. Okay, so cool. I mentioned like tutoring since like my freshman year, and also that like high school like programming club, and also hackathon, and then also writing programming competitions, and then I guess like one-off like things like I guess Cosmos. I think so. The things that I found that were most rewarding. Okay, so like rewarding to me, it's just like I think personal preference. Like I really liked like running the hackathon because I think I just really enjoyed like dealing with all the logistics behind running an event like that. And then obviously like the programming contest stuff is enjoyable. Like I'm still doing it now in college. But I think fruitful, like I guess like what was successful for college apps, I think so like so also contest stuff. So let's see, I started USACO like really late. I didn't know that competitive programming was a thing until like 11th grade, I think. So I think what happened was like, so all the college apps are due in like November. So there was like one or maybe two, there's like one USACO round like before college apps are due pretty much. And like, I tried to like push it as far as I could. So I like jumped bronze and then did silver and then absolutely got steamrolled by silver. And then by the time after college apps are due, I was like, oh, well, if I like do pretty well, maybe I can like update them or something. So then I clear silver, like, and then do gold in the same week, and I got steamrolled by gold. And I was like, okay, whatever. Yeah, and then by then like college apps are like already kind of coming out. So that was just like not really something that was like relevant to me. But I think in terms of something that made me stand out on my college app, were like I think running programming contests was definitely something that I feel like not a lot of people were doing. The thing about like running hackathons is I think like in high school I attended like there's like a couple big like high school hackathons. There's like Los Alto hacks, Menlo hacks. I don't know if they're still a thing. I kind of checked their website. They're not really doing anything, so I don't know. But like I think what ended up happening was like in the years like leading up to college apps, there was a really big wave of like B-roll high school hackathons, and so like it wasn't super common. It wasn't like, oh, it's just like everyone, like literally everyone's doing it. But also it wasn't like that crazy. Like every high school had a hackathon, I think, around the time that I applied. So I think, well, I mean, still talking about like organizing an event like that, it was still something meaningful. And also I guess somewhat like it stands out from like a leadership perspective. Volunteer tutoring and like the high school coding club, like the way that I see it is I think and each of these individually, if like just like taken on like at face value, honestly doesn't add that much. Like, I feel like a lot of you out here probably already do some form of like tutoring or maybe some form of like coding club that like lectures people. I think for me, what ended up happening was like I had a lot of these things that I could kind of just tie up in a nice like narrative, like, oh, hey, like I guess I kind of mentioned this before, like the whole like community thing where like, we have the hackathon that's like, free for high schoolers. And then we have like volunteer tutoring that I do during lunch and, like every single, like, I guess like 4 times a week, that kind of thing. And then like the coding club, which is like I write lectures, that kind of stuff. And then also like the whole like writing programming competitions. And I think just like the important thing for me, I think for college apps was being able to like have a very like, I don't know, like a very cohesive profile, maybe, I guess. Because like, again, I feel like each of these things individually are like nothing too special, but yeah, that's pretty much.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, combine all this together, I can see you did a lot like a service to the community. I think that's a big contribution. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Everett.
Yeah, I think that the 2 activities I found the most fruitful were not coding competition, just competitions in general, and teaching. So for competitions, I feel like the most rewarding part, because I did math and coding competitions, was the fact that it was like a really good preparation for like the future. For math competitions, there's a lot of like number theory and combinatorics, that stuff comes back later, and at least I needed to do it in order to be qualified at that to get a CS major. And then for coding competitions, a lot of the skills that I gained from doing USACO helped me in my CS classes, like CS 170, the class that Xavier was talking about being core staff for. He did mention that that was like the closest class to USACO, and I can agree because USACO was probably the main reason why like the class was not a terrible time for me. So contests I feel like were very rewarding in that way, and also the fact that like I was able to build just find a community of people who are all like smart and decent people, and I feel like that is something that anyone should try to find in their activities. Another thing I found to be rewarding is teaching, because well, contests have helped me personally, but not really much help for anyone else inherently. But teaching is different because it's just rewarding to help other people achieve the same goals that you have achieved or are trying to achieve. And at least for me, teaching is just using the skills that you have gotten in order to make a difference for other people. And I think that that is a really good thing about that I find to be rewarding and fruitful.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, definitely teaching, not only helping others, I think help you to grow and feel fruitful too. Yeah. Thank you. Xavier.
Yeah, I think for me, I talked about a lot of this earlier, but I think definitely number one for me was the coding club that I started and teaching everyone in the tutorials. And like I mentioned, like I had learned competitive programming myself, or learned most of it like during my junior year and summer after it. So it was really cool to like apply those skills to teaching people something that, wasn't taught in any CS classes at my school and that not really that many other students had done before in the form of tutorials during the next year. And so that was really rewarding for me. And also, I didn't mention this earlier, but we also started hosting like weekly contests during COVID because we were all kind of sad that CodeQuest got canceled that year. So we tried to make up for it by making a lot of our own problems and putting them in contests. And they weren't exactly competitive programming problems because, like I mentioned, CodeQuest is more implementation based as opposed to algorithm based. We were trying to make the contests as similar to CodeQuest as possible. So our contests weren't exactly competitive programming, but they were definitely programming and still a good experience to, write the problems. And I remember the first contest we did, this was even before that. This was before COVID, like maybe November 2019, fall of my junior year. And it was really cool just to have done a lot of Code Forces contests in the past, but see how contests go from the other side when you write problems and see people, even the people that you know from your school who maybe have never done a contest before, do their first ever in-person contest. And this was really fun to see. And we, of course, did more of these and then more virtual ones during COVID. And overall, I think I wrote around maybe 150 problems over the course of high school. So that was a really fun experience to write these problems for these contests. And it definitely helped me with Calico problem writing going into college too. But that's mostly it for my coding club. I think also, like Albert said, just doing contests, that has definitely really helped me in CS classes. Like, I think there's, I don't know, if you look on like Code Forces blogs or maybe elsewhere, you'll see a lot of people that try to argue that competitive programming isn't super useful in the real world and that it's more just a hobby. But I feel like for me, in terms of how useful it's been for my CS classes, I feel like I don't really agree with that. I think CS 61A, CS 61B, CS 70, CS 170, and many others, like all of the four like earliest CS classes that you take here at Berkeley, I would have done significantly worse in them without competitive programming experience. And the way Berkeley works is that if you don't get a 3.3 GPA in these first 3 CS classes that you take, you can't even declare the major. That's actually not the case anymore. They're changing it, but for people that were admitted when I was, you had to get this fairly high GPA in your first 3 classes to even do CS. And I feel like I would have been more at risk of not doing that if I hadn't had this competitive programming experience. So it was super useful just to have that as a base for going to all these classes. So I think for me, it's the combination of this leadership from the coding club, making my own problems, and just taking all these contests in high school that set me up well for CS at Berkeley.
Nice, great. That's a great combination. Let's go to the fourth question. I think some of you already provide kind of suggestions, advices to the audience here. Any others to add on? Maybe not only coding, STEM, or even some high school life or prepare for college? Chris?
So let's see. Okay, middle school and high school. So I really think it just depends on like, okay, how this? I'll start by saying one thing that I feel like I heard a lot going into high school, which is that people are like, oh, people are like people who are well-rounded, and I feel like this is probably common knowledge by now, but like for anyone who doesn't already kind of is aware of this, I feel like that's honestly really bad advice now, because when everyone's well-rounded, everyone looks the same, and then they're just like, okay, cool, like you're not special, so we're just gonna like smooth on over you, and it's just like, okay, so honestly, I feel like I feel like one good way to stand out is to, well, I guess if we're going in the opposite direction of like well-rounded, it's like, you kind of figure out something that like you really like that is relevant to what you're applying to, and you kind of just like hone in on that. And the thing is like, okay, it depends on where you are, right? Because if you're going to like a high school where there's already a bunch of like, established stuff in place, like, you're going to high school in like Cupertino or something, like, there's already going to be like hackathons, there's already going to be programming competitions, there's already going to be like a bunch of stuff. So it's gonna, I guess it's like in that sense, like pros and cons, like on one hand, it's like, okay, you get to like, there's like a more established way of like getting into these kinds of like extracurriculars that you can put in your application, and the groundwork's kind of been laid for you, and so you really kind of like get to go straight to the point for like things you want to do. But then on the other hand, it's like, okay, if you're going to a place that like doesn't have those opportunities, you don't have to be super ambitious. The way I see it is like, I feel like, well, like when I talked before, it's like, oh, I listed like, oh, I did like tutoring, I did like hackathon, I wrote programming competitions. I feel like doing one thing at a time is like the way to go. Like, and that's kind of what I did. But it's like, if you go to a high school and like not a lot of that stuff is like already there, then you're just like, hey, well, I want to like start like doing this one thing. I'm just gonna go from the ground up. And a lot of these things are a lot more involved than they might seem from the outside. And so that's really like a valuable thing that you can talk about, in the sense of like, when you talk about what you learned from doing this experience, you're like, oh, well, like, okay, I guess I'll go on a tangent, but it's like, when I wrote about like what I learned from doing the hackathon, it's like, okay, well, lots of people have different interests when it comes to like organizing events. Some people really like the whole like, reaching out to sponsors and trying to get, sponsorship money. Some other people like handling like logistics. So then it's like, having them coordinate catering and like the venue and event insurance, that kind of stuff. Some people like doing like more like outreach stuff, so posting on social media and like spamming people on email, that kind of stuff. And it's like, figuring out where everyone can kind of like, what everyone's interests are, and having them all kind of work together is something that you can definitely, I feel like to me was a really valuable experience in like how to coordinate a team. But let's see, I guess taking a step back and coming back to this question of like advice for middle and high school students. Okay. Well, okay, if you're in middle school, I feel like personally for me, I don't know why I got straight A's in middle school, and I constantly look back at this, like every couple of like months, I'll just be like, oh, like why did I spend so much time doing that? Because like no one asked for it. And like I really feel like personally, like unless you're trying to like skip math classes, like honestly, like I feel like getting straight A's in like middle school is just like, if you could use that time elsewhere and like further like a hobby, then you'll be hitting the ground running in high school, like already ahead of other people. I guess that's like one thing. But then also like, okay, for most people going to high school, I think one thing that worked out really well for me was kind of minimizing the amount of time that classes take for you, in the sense of like, I feel like if you pour a lot of time into your classes and you get like, straight A's, a great GPA, maybe a great SAT score, ACT score, everyone's seen what's been going on with college apps. Like that doesn't really cut it anymore. In the sense of like, it's kind of like more of a bar, right? You cross like, a 3.5 like weighted GPA, and then you're in the running for like a lot of colleges. Then it's about like your extracurriculars, it's about like all this other stuff. But then, if you pour a bunch of your time into classes and you get like, say, like I say 3.5. Oh, actually 3. Depending on where you're playing, but let's just say like 4.2 weighted or something like that, right? But I think, like there's lots of people who like pour a lot of time into their classes, and then they get like there's that story floating around that I heard this year of like someone with a like 4.9 getting like waitlisted to Santa Cruz, and I was like, man, like that's just like toxic. But I think it's just like, for me in high school, what really worked for me is like I took it slow with classes. I didn't really skip a lot of math classes. I really took my time. I kind of took the classic like pre-calculus, and then like calc AV, calc BC, and then freshman year I took algebra 2, and then like for these other classes, I guess math is really the only place you really skip. But I guess for me, it's like I made my class schedule in a way such that I could get this sounds so stupid, but like I try to maximize my classes in the way that like I could get the best GPA using the least amount of effort, and that really freed up a lot of time for me to do stuff outside of classes, which I feel like is really what sets you apart in like college jobs these days. So like yeah, pretty much it. Like you go to classes, obviously you shouldn't like flunk out of your classes. This isn't like free agency to get like straight C's or something, but like if you're going for like a bunch of A's, like well, like A-minuses are basically A's, but okay, that's kind of a side tangent. But yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I can see classes shall not take all of your time, right? That's definitely good advice. Edward, any advices from you?
I think that for middle and high school students considering CS as a college major, for high school, let me just separate this again into high and middle school. For high school students, I think that a couple of things, like first of all, like the college you go to, like largely, like by and large, does not matter that much. Like there might be like some like advantages to go into a school like Berkeley or MIT for recruiting, but at the end of the day, like whatever you want to do, you are most likely going to be able to do regardless of how colleges pan out. A lot of this is luck, a lot of this is completely random, so not much of it is in your control, especially when you get to like top schools. But if your goal is to get into these top schools, I think that one thing that you should do is like try to like, as Chris says, try to like take more time away from your classes in order to work on projects. I know me personally, like I took a lot of extremely rigorous classes when I was in high school, and I think that did have some benefit. And I'm not going to say it wasn't worth it, but it definitely took a lot of time I could have spent like trying to sharpen the knife with CS specifically. So there is that. And another thing that like another thing is just to try to scout projects, like look for projects and don't wait for them to come to you. So like you should look for, like, if you want to do research, you should start like cold emailing professors. If you want to find a job, you should cold email whoever might be offering a job and just say, hey, do you have any jobs? Doing that is definitely a good way to like catch opportunities that other people might not, especially because in CS, that like when applying to CS colleges, that is what matters at the end of the day. For middle schoolers, I think that the best thing you should do is like, if you really want to do CS, you should start looking at competitions. You just start looking at like possible ways to like kickstart activities in high school. That way you can, like, as Chris says, you can just hit the ground running once you're in high school. But if you aren't like dead set on that career path, I think that you should just like enjoy like whatever last moments of like not having like any consequence for the future, I would say, and just do whatever you feel like, as long as you're not like actively causing issues or like causing trouble or like flunking out. You have a lot more leeway when you're in middle school to just like be a kid for the last time. So don't overthink it.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, yes, thank you. Yeah, I think for the middle school, it's pretty flexible. If you can start earlier, definitely that can help. Okay, great. Xavier.
Yeah, so I would say kind of going off of that, in some ways, I would say that like definitely working on projects is a good way to just increase your CS experience, like in a fun way. And I would say that kind of similar to what Albert was saying with like, you don't want to do like all competitive programming for a summer, right? I would say when you're working on personal projects or other projects in CS, I would recommend try to pick a project or make a project that like fits with some of your interests, or at least make a project that like you're excited about and can get excited about coding. For it depends on who you are, what that would look like, but I think that's really important, because then you'll be more motivated to work on the project. You'll have more fun with it. And in my experience, when I've done projects that I'm not as interested in, or that don't pertain to things I'm interested in as much, I've had a lot more trouble finding motivation to work on them. But when there's something that's, and I'll probably talk about this in the next question, but when it's something that like I'm interested in, like it pertains to one of my hobbies, or just a really cool project in general, I've been able to get it done much faster and have had a lot more fun working on it. So I think I would suggest work on, if you're interested in CS and you want to get more experience with it, one great way is to work on projects, personal or otherwise. And if you find yourself like not motivated enough to do them, but you still would like to pursue CS, try to think about making your projects like pertain to your interests, or just something that you would be more interested in general. And that would help a lot, I think. And that's maybe for both middle school and high school, maybe especially for high school. Personally, I started projects like that in middle school, but definitely gained more experience and made more serious projects when I got to high school, I would say. But that would be my advice for projects. As for competitive programming, I would definitely say that if you're interested in CS and you like competitions, and maybe even if you've done a few competitions or a few ones like CodeQuest that are more implementation based, I would say as long as it's something that interests you, it's a great thing to get started with early. I personally didn't start with competitive programming until maybe end of 10th grade, so that's a little later than many people. But if it's something you're interested in, I definitely recommend it. But like I said earlier, like if you're not motivated to like practice a lot, then maybe just try doing a different aspect of CS for a little bit, or just taking a break. But if it's something you're interested in, I would say definitely give it a try. Take some contests. It definitely helps with your college application and classes in college, like I said before. So I don't know. I think Albert and Chris already touched a lot on like how to manage like course load and things like that. So I think I'll leave it at that. Like I would just say work on projects if you're interested in gaining experience with CS, but I would recommend try to do ones that align with your interests, and that helps your motivation a lot. And kind of the same thing with competitive programming.
Nice, great. Yeah, definitely, I totally agree. Interest is the most important thing for you to pursue that direction. Okay, let's go to the last question I have here. Let's talk more about your college life. Would you please share maybe 2 to 3 things you think you are having fun, like? Yeah, let's start from Chris.
Let's see. Well, okay, so at least for me, I really like how, like, okay, well, like pros and cons. So like, you know how in high school, like you have to show up to class and you have to like, pay attention and keep up with everything, and, kind of go along the curriculum like a responsible student. I feel like if you, at least for me for Berkeley, especially over COVID, but I guess also like while like in person, it's, I guess a pro and a con, which is that it's so, like if you need more time to do something, like just in a given week, just because of like something comes up, like, like you have like, maybe some like side project you're doing really like picks up, and you're like, I need more time, and like, I need to find more time on a thin air. You can just not go to your class, but you can, of course that's like a pro and a con, right? Because you have to make up that work at some point. But I think it's like for people who really like living on the edge and procrastinating, your life will be a lot more chill if you don't procrastinate. But if you do want to procrastinate, you can like really ride that edge. That's what I'm gonna say. Like you could get so much free time and then so much regret like in the 3 hours leading up to like a big deadline. But that's pretty cool. I think, okay, but also like a more genuine answer, I think, is I feel going into Berkeley, I hear a lot of stories about like people being super toxic, and like it's super cutthroat and competitive, and like, everything's on a curve, so everyone's like out to get you and that kind of stuff. And honestly, in my experience, like I feel like okay, I feel like the one story that always floats around is like that story of like that one time that like there's this class that has like a final, and then someone tapes like a sign that says like, oh, we've changed exam rooms. It's like across campus, and like sorry for the late notice. And then they like door stop the door or something. So when people try to open it, it like literally it's like something like insane, crazy stuff. And then like people will actually like not take the final, and then that like boosts the curve or whatever. But I feel like depending on who you talk to, there's plenty of people here at Berkeley who are just trying to have a good time. And I'm pretty sure there definitely are cutthroat people out there. Like, that's just gonna happen. But it's far from like us sea of people all like kind of looking over their backs and like that kind of stuff. So that's one thing I really like.
Nice. That's glad to know. Albert.
Yeah, similar to what Chris was talking about, I think the best part about Berkeley is the culture and the people. So like at Berkeley, there's just, if you just think of any type of person, there is probably that person at Berkeley. Like you can be like, oh, I did competitive programming in high school and I want to branch out. There's probably people there who would do that. If you did competitive programming in high school and want to keep doing it, well, there are people who do that. If you want to just meet someone who's completely different from you, like majoring in like something completely different, that they exist too. So like, just you can literally find anyone. I've also been able to get like found it much easier to find like a community of people who like are talented, but also like are able to like also have like a very balanced life. And still do like social events and stuff. And I think that Chris and Xavier are definitely examples of that. So yeah, it's just your experience in Berkeley is very much defined by what you want to do and what you want to get out of it. And I think that is the best part.
Yeah, I think that's good. You have all the kind of opportunities to pursue your interest, especially also your like the peer groups. Yeah, good to know. Xavier.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of what Chris and Albert said just about how it's such a big school and there's just so many different things you can do. And I think in addition to that, in terms of like the academic side of it, I think just the freedom to take so many different classes here at Berkeley has been really nice. Like it might be different for different high schools, but at my high school, there really wasn't that much freedom in what classes you took, apart from like if you took like the basic class honors or AP for a certain subject. But apart from that, like you pretty much just had a locked in schedule with maybe like 2 electives, and there really wasn't that much freedom. But here at Berkeley, early, like you have your major and you'll take maybe 2 or 3 classes related to the major and maybe one more that's not related to it. But even in the one that's not related to your major, you get a lot of freedom in what exactly that looks like. And that's made things a lot more fun for me academically, just to take more CS related classes or more classes that I'm interested in, instead of just having this, very year by year cut or year by year, like very specific schedule that I had to follow in high school. So that's really nice. And more on the less academic side, I would say just being in the Bay Area and being in Berkeley personally has been a really big plus for me. I like doing a lot of outdoor stuff like cycling specifically, and being from upstate New York, the weather definitely is better here. And I think for me, I feel like a lot of people said that like the area that you go to college in or the place that you go doesn't matter that much. But I feel like for me, and specifically for Berkeley, it really did. And I'm really glad that I ended up here, even though that wasn't why I chose Berkeley. But I feel like that's definitely one of the biggest positive aspects of it for me.
Great, glad you like here. Okay, that's the 5 questions from me. There's already we collect a lot of questions from the parents. I think we run out of time quickly. Only have 4 minutes left. How about this? So maybe I want to give the kind of live questions. Yeah, parents, students, if you have any live questions, please raise your hand. I like you maybe ask here to get their answers. Any live questions? No? Okay, maybe from the chat, I see Carol, she has a question, how can high school students find computer science related projects and internships? XCamp, we plan to have more kind of discussions on the projects and the internships. If you can follow up, we can give you more kind of discussions. Chris, I think for your like a Cosmos, how did you find that?
I think Cosmos is just like one of those things that like you hear circulated on a lot of Asian parent WeChats, and then they're like, oh, you should like apply to this. And then I was like, okay. And then also like, I think everyone's parents at like my high school got the memo at the exact same time, because like out of nowhere, everyone was just talking about Cosmos. But in terms of like, okay, like CS projects or internships, well, I feel like projects are really something that like, you choose to do yourself. I feel like my projects, that were CS specific related are honestly not that impressive because they are purely just HTML and CSS, which it is surprising how much you can get away with without touching JavaScript, but that's pretty cool. But like, I think in terms of like pure CS projects, I see lots of people like, lots of people, maybe they get like into Linux and like system stuff. Like there's lots of people who are so much better at systems than like I don't know how they do it, but it's like, that can like Kubernetes and like all those like fun, like, you set up a bunch of machines and then they run like this like one program, like, distributed, like in practice, I guess it's pretty cool. Like Docker, like those kind of like software tools. Like people can build real software projects. And like, in high school, I had friends who like, really like building iOS apps or like full stack, like apps. Like, I feel like it's something that you really just kind of like pick up, but like on your own based on like what you're interested in. Like, there was like AR, VR stuff, like AI was a big thing. I feel like it's even bigger now probably. But in terms of having get started in those, I think the first thing you need to do is figure out what you want to do, like in terms of what kind of project. You can't do everything at once. You got to pick one. But once you go from there, I mean, Google searches help, but I think it's also like worth to see if there's anyone who might know someone who you can like talk to, because I think talking to someone about like who's knowledgeable on what you're trying to learn is so much better than just Googling stuff. Because I feel like when you just Google stuff, you don't really know what's important. It's like trying to give someone a dictionary and you're like, here, learn English. It's like, I don't know what words are important, that kind of stuff. So that's just, yeah, that's my take.
Okay, that's very helpful. I think for this quiz list here, we may answer most of them. I want to skip that. Let me see, we have 1 minute left. Okay, we have also following sessions. Next Monday, we will have XCamp students. They are USACO finalists. They will share their experience. Also, in next Friday, we will have students from Caltech, CMU, and also share their experience too. I think time is so fast. I'm so glad to have all of you here. Thank you again, Chris, Albert, and Xavier. Also, I want to show thank you, for your contributions to the community. I can see from middle school, high school, college, all of you put a lot of time, effort, to help the community, to help the hackathons, contests, also like the competitive contest, also like tutoring. Thank you very much again. Hope all of you have a nice summer. Thank you. Have a good one.